My Bigfoot sighting happened when I was 5 years old down in Ada, Oklahoma. I was just a little kid running around. My dad worked at a ranch, and he was a cowboy, a real cowboy. While he was gone, there wasn't too much for me to do. I just run around in the fields, watch the animals. I got up close and seen a panther distance away, but still a black bear. I seen snakes fighting. I seen a hawk fly down, grab a snake, lift it up high in the air, and then just let it go. Of course, when my dad found out about it, he was not thrilled. But anyway, that didn't stop me. My mom told me to keep my shoes and pants dry, not wet. So whenever I went down to the stream behind our house, about, I don't know, 30 feet or so, I always took the shoes off, put the socks inside the shoes, tie the string, and put it around my neck. I rolled my pant leg up all the way up to my knees. The water was crystal clear and cool. And it went up about halfway up my calf. And I used to walk in there and look for tracks on the bank, see what's in there, raccoons or maybe a bobcat showed up or something like that. And when the birds quit singing, I got a little worried because I remember what my grandfather and my dad used to tell me, that whenever birds or squirrels quit singing, quit talking, that means there's a predator in the area. Well, I didn't notice it until I was down there looking, and I was watching a little old frog swimming around the water, trying not to get eaten by the snake. But I was squatted down on the embankment, and that's when I noticed how quiet it was. There was just a little bit of breeze. But I seen ripples in the water, and I thought, well, that's strange. And I looked over, and you can make out a foot, a huge hairy foot under the water. And then I seen the leg going up. And about where the knee was, it was thick and real hairy. It was about the color of cinnamon. And it went behind a tree. And I kept looking up and up. And I seen a branch, and I seen this huge hand on the branch. And I remember looking at it going like, that is something I've never seen a hand that big in my life. And I looked over, and at the fork of the tree, or where the branch ran into the tree, I seen the face looking right at me. Its eyes were kind of reddish, almost like ember. And he had a smile on his face. Nose was kind of wide, but it looked more human than ape. He had big ears. Well, actually, not really big ears, small ears. You could barely pin them out. And his face was not covered with hair, but the rest of him was covered with hair. It was long hair, and I seen the back part of him sticking out on the other side of the tree with his leg. And all he was doing was just standing there watching me. I don't know how long he was watching me. It seemed like forever. When we were sitting there, we locked eyes. And I swear, though, I got scared. I really did. And I jumped up as fast as I could and ran up the embankment and ran towards the house, barefooted. Now, if this thing wanted me, he could have had me with nothing, no problem. But he didn't. And I made it to the house. I shut the screen door, and I locked it with that old-fashioned lock. And my mother, she was at the kitchen cooking, and my brother was in the high chair by the table. He was about a year old. And Mom said, well, that's the first time I didn't have to yell for you to come in, because I always got in trouble. Yelling, I could hear him yell for I have to run back home. But this day, she didn't have to yell. I just sat there and I kept looking at the screen. And it dawned on me, if this thing really wanted to come in, that little screen door was not going to hold it or hold it back. And my mom looked down at me. She goes, "What's wrong with you?" I said, I didn't know what to tell her because I've never seen anything like this in my life. Mom said, "What is wrong?" And I said, the only thing I could say was, I seen a big pig back down there, huge hog. She looked at me and kind of shook her head. And later that day, my dad got in all day long. I would not go outside. I just would not. I just had this feeling that thing was still down there waiting on me to come on down. And when Dad got in, we sat around and we ate and everything. And Dad asked what was going on. Mom said, Kenny seen a big old hog down there in the stream. Dad looked over, he goes, "Well, how big?" I go, "Huge." And he just sat back and he started smiling. And we heard a knock at the front door. Dad went to answer it, and I followed my dad. And there was a farmer that lived next door to us. Now, here comes a clincher. This farmer raised up and said, "How you doing, Mr. Roberts?" And Dad said, "Fine, sir." He goes, "What can I do for you?" And he goes, "By chance, have you guys seen anything around here running around that's not natural?" And Dad said, "No. Why?" He goes, "Well, something got into my hog pen, and I'm missing 2 hogs. Both of them are 200 pounds. And the footprints goes right over and goes right over the fence. It doesn't break the fence. It just goes right over the fence and into the stream." So my dad and me ran down there. My Uncle Jim showed up with a couple other people. I don't know who they from. We seen the footprints. It was huge. I mean, I can't tell you how to begin. I can only guess the length, the width, and it was deep. It was in the mud, and it was deep. And my dad looked over, and you see the footprints walking and going right over the fence. And you see the images of the hogs as their heads were shoved into the mud. So Uncle Jim took off running for the house, but they lived on the other side. And my dad turned around and looked at me and said, "You need to go back and stay with your mom and your brother." I said, "Yeah, Dad." And so I took off. As I was running around the corner, here's Uncle Jim coming running around the corner with 2 shotguns and 2 bags of shells. They climbed over the fence. They had to climb over the fence. This thing walked over the fence. And they went into the stream and went down, and they followed it. Dad told us that night he got in, and when he came in, he put the shotgun next to the front door and rubbed me on the head, and then he walked over and sat down with Mom. And he said, "Yeah, we followed it for about a mile." And he said that whatever it was, took those hogs, laid them on the embankment, and he said they just broke their necks. And he goes, part of it was missing on both hogs. And then they found other footprints around there, like that one, that were a little smaller, and some were a little bit bigger. And he figured that whatever this was, it had a family, and it basically was feeding its family. And he said, "Boys, I ain't not gonna mess with this." So he turned around and walked back out, him and Uncle Jim. And Mom said, "What do you think it was?" He goes, "I don't know, but I can tell you one thing." He goes, "He's big and he stunk and strong." And we got back. That's what Dad was saying that night. Then when it came nighttime, Dad and Mom went into the bedroom. We only had one bedroom. I slept in the living room on the couch. And I was laying there, and I had the windows wide open so you can get a breeze in there. And I heard something on the outside, heavy footprints, and kind of like a little grunt here and there, and little whistles. And I got scared. I fell on the floor, and like a dadgum snake, I crawled into Mom and Dad's room. I seen his shotgun was there, and my brother was not in his crib, but he was in between my mom and dad. And they was all sleeping. Well, I didn't want to wake them because what am I going to say? I mean, Dad, Mom, there's a monster outside. I laid down on that carpet with that little roll rug and I went to sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I was laying on the couch. Sun was coming up. Dad was eating the breakfast, drinking coffee, and he raised up and said, "Okay, well, I'll see you guys tonight." And he left. And that thing came down there and had two hogs. I think it was down there eyeballing them hogs, but that's about as much as I can remember. The only thing I can tell you was this thing was, it was massive. It was built, I mean, like somebody who lift weights. It was just enormous. It just, you could see the muscles through the skin, but the hair was long and his eyes were amber and his face was tan, not black, but tan. And he was just humongous. I mean, I couldn't begin to tell you how tall. I like to think he's about 8 or 9 feet tall, but I was just 5 years old. What did I know? But we've heard other reportings around where some people missing calves, a colt here and there, a couple of dogs got killed. But that went on for a long time down there in Ada, Oklahoma. Down that stream bed, every time I went back down there, I was always leery. My grandfather gave me a little old knife, 4 inches long, and a handle. It was a Davy Crockett knife. And I got to where I put that on my belt, and I carried it down like that's really going to do anything. But it made me feel better. And I seen tracks here and there down there. It's always down by the river or the stream bed. You can just see it. And it went on for miles and miles. But some people down in Arkansas, our cousins, they found dead animals laying in the woods where it almost comes down to the field, where the deers has been, the necks have been broke, and they've been stripped almost half clean. You can see the skeletons and everything. And but after that, when I got a little bit older, we moved to Kansas City. And when we got to Kansas City, we was watching the news in 1968, and the news came out and said, "What we're about to show you is real. It's not fake." And they said that Roger Patterson filmed a Sasquatch. They're called Sasquatches down in Bluff Creek, California, in 1967. The film has been analyzed. So what we're about to show you is real. And that's when I first seen the female Bigfoot. I looked over at my mom and dad. I go, that is what I seen down there. And my brother too. But I will never forget it as long as I live. That was the only time I really got a real good look at one. I mean, we was close. I mean, close. But I just had this feeling he wasn't going to hurt me. He was just more interested, like curiosity, like my brother was telling me. He's probably sitting there looking at me going, "You're doing the same thing as my kids do." Something like that. It's pretty amazing. And after that, I just got to where I was constantly walking out into the woods and looking around. Unfortunately, most of the places I've been were not really activity prone. But here in the state of Missouri, down by the southern part where Missouri and Arkansas meet, is pretty thick down there with Bigfoot territory. You get farmers all the time saying they seen them walking in the field. One farmer said that he seen one walking in the field carrying a deer. That's pretty weird. Anyway, I wish I could tell you more about what it was. I can tell you it was a nice sunny day. It wasn't real hot or anything, just nice. We had a nice breeze out there and everything was fine. The water down the stream was crystal clear. It was nice and cool. You could reach your hand in it and drink out of it. It was nice. That's when I seen that thing. That's when I learned later on and it was Bigfoot. I never will forget it as long as I live.